Thank you for joining me today on this Friday for our devotional time. We are looking at the Epistle of Jude, verses 1 through 25. There's only 25 verses in this short epistle, but Jude has some powerful things to say to us as Christians, especially in the time in which we are living today. In verses 1 through 16, he talks about the current conditions of the early church and the challenges that leadership and faithful members of the congregation were facing. And then in verses 17 through 25, he talks about how to remain a Christian in challenging times. I ran across an old song that spoke to me again, and it relates to the dynamic of what we're working with today. It was first sung by Keith Green. He wrote it, both music side as well as the lyrics. I'd like to share that with you. It says, "My eyes are dry, my faith is old, my heart is hard, my prayers are cold, and I know how I ought to be, alive to you and dead to me. But what can be done for this old heart like mine? Soften it up with oil and wine. The oil is you, your spirit of love. Please wash me anew in the wine of your blood." We are called to be committed Christians, not cultural or complacent. And that was part of the concern of Jude's message in this epistle. And in this epistle, we find two main emphases. Let me remind us of those. First is the power of God to keep that which we've committed to Him. And then there's the important aspect of response on our part that is just as crucial to persevere to the end. The notion that salvation is all on God's side is thoroughly unbiblical and certainly unsupportable in this passage. What I find exciting about this message from this epistle is that in verses 20 through 21, we are given the information, the insight that we need to discover what is up to us and how to persevere to the end. The main verb clause in verses 20 through 21 is keep yourself in the love of God. Absolutely essential for us if we are to persevere to the end. And last week we went over build yourself up on your most holy faith. That is, make sure that you are taking in the content of the life of Jesus, the apostles' writings, all that is found there, so that we might know the content and live it out. Keep yourselves in God's love by building yourself up on your most holy faith. And today, the second supportive phrase of that main verb clause is pray in the Holy Spirit. The New Testament and Christian experience seem to teach that there are essentially two kinds of prayer: normal prayer, ongoing dialogue with God, and intense when there is crisis and intense need. It is the second kind of prayer that this passage advocates. Beyond our prayers for the blessing of our food and good night prayers and the like there are the intense kinds of prayers. These are prayers offered to God in times of crisis, pressure, challenge, even desperation. These prayers are deep and intense in tone and content. Prayer without passionate purpose or insightful interest is devoid of the Spirit. James refers to such prayers when he observes that it is the fervent, effective prayer of a righteous individual that brings desired results. Paul mentions in his letter to the Ephesian Christians that they ought to pray in the Spirit on all occasions. I can personally testify that prayer is not always easy. Paul evidently understood the same frustration when he wrote to the Roman Christians. He said, We do not know what we ought to pray, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groans that words cannot express. And he who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints in according with God's will. Here Paul seems to imply that there are those moments when we are frustrated in prayer and we feel that we have not made any connection with God. It is in these moments that the Holy Spirit enables us to rise above these frustrations. If you would remain a Christian, if you would be a Christian who perseveres to the end, praying in the Spirit is essential to your spiritual well-being. Keep yourselves in God's love. Pray in the Spirit. What a message to us today, when many of us are facing incredible challenges in our families, in our congregation, in our communities. May the Lord bless you.